It's hot. It's June. It's RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline,
Live from the studios of the RamCave, I'm Joe Terzian, and this is RamView, the June 27th, 2025 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. All right. So much breaking news, not. So much stuff happening, not. So much stuff to go over, maybe. We're going to talk a little bit of Ram stuff today. Maybe not a whole lot of Ram stuff because there's just not a lot. So we're going to make up for it in what we would call the aggregate. We're going to talk Ram football a little bit. We're going to talk NFC West a little bit. Then we're going to go around the NFL like we did the other day, talking about which teams and how they project. I'm going to talk more about individual players that are really difference makers or positions that are difference makers for these teams. And then we'll do a little around other places and drop in a few nuggets about basketball and different stuff. My Mets have won, I think, 2 in a row. They're back in first place. I'm just not feeling comfortable right now enough to talk baseball. And again, I'm going to camp next week, so I'll probably only have one broadcast. I'm going to try to do all of them, but I'll be outside when I'm doing it. So we'll see how it all plays out. What else was I going to share? Oh, yeah. And then hopefully when I get back, we can start doing the test runs for a morning version called FanView, which will be a more general sports show that I'll do Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we'll go from there and we'll see how it will work out. All right, let's go. Rams arm update. They got their camp arm. JD Durham, thank you so much, JD, for being here on a Friday night. I know a lot of folks have places to be. People always catch me later on Fridays, and that's all right. Camp arm. The Rams finally signed to camp arm. And lo and behold, of all people, for the third time, I doubt it's going to be a charm, but it's Dresser Wynn. And Rams like Dresser Wynn. He's comfortable. He's a guy that's not going to cause any wave. He's going to come out there and just do all the stuff that Jimmy G, Stafford won't be doing, and maybe giving a breather to Stetson Bennett. And that's the story here, is that by the signing of Dresser Wynn, which we kind of knew, if we didn't know it was going to be Dresser Wynn, I think we were leaning that way. You know, some of you made a mention of Bryce Perkins and the year he had in the UFL. And the question was, would the Rams bring in competition for Stetson Bennett? Well, the Rams didn't draft anybody, right? They didn't bring anybody else in. They haven't signed anybody. And I think the fact that, okay, now it's nailed down that we're going to bring fourth arm in for the summer. Now that it's Dresser Wynn, we know for sure the Rams are fully committed to Stetson Bennett, right? Fully committed to him. And, that's just how it's going to be. And that's okay. You know, a couple things about Bennett that I think, I'm not saying he's a star. I think he could be better than John Wolford, right? But we don't want to see him play, obviously. But, again, Stetson Bennett is self-made, right? Stetson Bennett that guy, the quarterbacks, the talent of the quarterbacks he chased off in Georgia was pretty amazing. And he won 2 national football titles, right? And then on top of that, he's got some age on him. He's gone through his demons. He's come back on the other side. And so if something should happen, please no, right? If something should happen, one thing's for sure is the Rams know Dresser Wynn. No, I'm sorry. They know Dresser Wynn, but they know Stetson Bennett. They know what his capabilities are. They know what packages they can run. They know what he's capable of. And maybe he can buy the Rams the second half of a game where somebody goes down, right? Maybe he can buy the Rams a game against, the Saints or something, right? We don't want too much exposure. And then that goes to a much lesser extent for Dresser Wynn. If you're going to bring in a fourth arm, you want somebody familiar with the squad, familiar with the program, familiar with the clubhouse, familiar with all the other odds and ends, familiar with some of the receivers. So you bring in Dresser Wynn. But I think it just confirms, although I don't think Dresser Wynn's officially signed yet. I'm seeing a note here that he hasn't officially signed. But what Dresser Wynn means is there's no way they're moving off Stetson Bennett. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay. McSneed, we trust, right? McSneed, we trust. Did see a link earlier. I didn't click. Well, did I click on it? Maybe I clicked, but I didn't read. Talking about Stafford struggling in inside the 10 and goal-to-go situations. I think that's fair. The Rams do struggle in those places, but I'm going to go from the fanboy. I'm going to break away from fanboy orbit here. And because I've been on the air with some of you guys before about this, is I think Sean McVay's play calling inside the 10 is pretty crappy. Sorry I used the C word there. It's pretty cruddy. I'm amazed that they can run that gap scheme running game, pound it inside to the 20, inside to the 10. And then all of a sudden we're going to run a fade to the end zone. I hate the fade. I really do. I think that's so low percentage, and I know teams run it. They think they're going to catch them off guard or something. But he starts passing the ball, and it's like, you know what? You just pounded make them stop you once, right? Make them stop you for a 1 yard or a no yard gain before you go to the pass on first down when you've pounded it all the way down the field, right? Some teams you can't do that to. But there are teams, and I've sat in the room with smart football people, and that's those times where it goes back to the McVay that we saw in 2019 and a little bit in 2020, where we really weren't sure. I mean, great coach, but sometimes we thought he suffered from smartest guy in the room syndrome. Do you remember at the end of the Jared Goff run, he had zero confidence in Goff, and we didn't know that publicly because the Rams run a tight ship. But do you remember how many times it was like 3rd and 15 and we're running an inside hitch to Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods? And it's like, well, what are we doing here? Why aren't we going linear here? And because he had lost all confidence in Jared Goff. And I remember sitting in a room, excellent football people, and we're talking and we're going, does he just think he's smarter than everybody else? Because we couldn't figure it out. And I think he got over it. You notice he doesn't lose his way like he did in that Buccaneer game back in 2019 where Goff threw 67 times, I think. He tends to keep everything in balance as he's grown as a coach. I know this sounds very unfanboy, but I do think there are times it's like he gets inside of his head, and I think it happens inside the 10. Now, if you're moving the ball downfield a la, final drive in Super Bowl 56, all bets are off. But if you're pounding the rock, right, 6 out of 7 plays, you're picking up 6-7 yards, and now you're inside the opponent's 10. Well, I'm not going to go to Colby Parkinson in the corner of the end zone, right? I'm just not. I'm going to pound it until they force me to throw it, right? I'm going to pound. So I do think there is something to that, but I don't know if it's on Stafford. I think it's on McVay. If you want to put it on Stafford, and maybe I should have read the article, but if you want to put it on Stafford for being a 17-year vet, the Methuselah at quarterback in the NFL outside of Aaron Rodgers, and not just saying, you know what, I'm not running that play, right? He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. There's times that I think Stafford needs to push back, right? And I know they got a great relationship, but at a certain point, when a play comes in, it's like, no, we're not running that. We're just not going to do it, right? I'm going to change up the line of scrimmage or whatever, but we're not running that play. I know they're all in sync and they're all simpatico, but there are those moments where, the Rams do struggle inside the 10. So I think the article's correct. I don't know if it's as much Stafford's fault as it is McVay's, but yeah, you hope it is something they do correct. All right, a few guys have clicked on. J.D. Durham, until the Rams draft another quarterback next year. Do what gets you there. That'll be really interesting because I don't know if it's going to be. It's such an interesting thing because the Rams room could be really fluid, right? Stetson Bennett's not the quarterback of the future, and Jimmy G's not the quarterback of the future. If the Rams go to the Super Bowl and win, and let's just say Stafford is just fantastic, and there's no reason to even start the process of moving off of him, does Jimmy G stay? Or does Stafford say, hey, I got my ring, I got 4 daughters, I've been getting the snot beat out of me, maybe I just want to step away? Does Jimmy G step in for a year while we use those 2 first-round picks that we maybe push together and put them in the center of the table for a first-round quarterback? It's going to be really interesting to see, but all those guys in that room by 2027 could be gone, right? I hope not. I want to see Stafford play at this level for another 3 years because you don't just get Stafford's arm, you just get his wits, you get his experience and stuff. But yeah, I think it's a short-timer quarterback room, and I'm good with Stafford playing through 26. We'll see how it plays out. But I'm wondering with Jimmy G, does Jimmy G want one more shot at starting in the NFL? USA expat. Shouldn't the offensive coordinator be in his ear about the red zone play calling? Yeah, LaFleur probably makes suggestions. He's kind of like Bieniemy to Andy Reid. There's just certain places there where, do you really think there's any kind of offensive coordinator or somebody calling the plays in Frisco? Shanahan calls them. And, I think they can make suggestions, right? Kind of like a pirate saying they're not rules, but more like guidelines. And he doesn't call the play; he might suggest the play. I don't know. I would think so, but McVay is an offensive coach. USA expat. Can Stafford change the play at the line of scrimmage? I think he has, and I think he can. I think he just maybe sometimes he needs to exercise the right a little bit more, right? But I know all these guys that they get along really well. They're all in sync together. And that could be a great thing. But, when we were running Mid-Valley Sports back in the day, we brought in one guy that was completely different than the rest of us. And that was the part when we really took leaps and bounds because not everyone thought alike. All right, let's keep rolling here, guys. I do appreciate you folks clicking in. That's awesome. Thank you, JD and USA Expat for chiming in. Former Rams defensive end, former 5th-round pick, Ogbo Okoronkwo.
They come and they go, Hobbs. They come and they go.
Ogbo Okoronkwo was put in the street by the Cleveland Browns. He's 30. He was a 5th-round pick of the Rams back in 2018. So he bookended his career. 2018 and 2021 was Super Bowl appearances. Picked up a ring in 2021. Moved on. Went to the Texans and then signed, I think, a 2 or 3 year deal with. I think it was a 3-year deal with the Browns. And after 2 years, they put him in the street. He's okay. But you know what? And I think we liked Ogbo Okoronkwo. I think we all did. But the Rams knew what he was, and they let him walk, and they got a compensatory pick for him. I'd love to dig out and see what that is. Maybe I'll try to go fishing for that here in a minute before we get off the air. They got their compensatory pick, and he moved on, got some bigger paydays in Texas and in Houston and in Cleveland. And now it looks like it's the end of the line. God bless him. But I don't think there's room for him back on this team. All right, let's keep rolling. Michael Negretti, Pastor Joe, does Stetson Bennett get cut this year? No. Stetson Bennett does not get cut this year. Dresser Wind tells you Stetson Bennett's not going anywhere unless he does something really crazy, right? Unless he does something off the charts, unless something just off the charts happens, Stetson Bennett will be the Rams' 3rd-string quarterback. The Rams had the offseason to sign somebody to come in and compete. They had a whole full draft. They could have taken somebody at the end of the draft to do that. There was a lot of speculation they would do that. They didn't do it. The Rams are committed to Stetson probably for the length of his contract, but he's 27 now. And so we know he's not a long-term answer, but I think makes the Rams feel comfortable that if your 3rd stringer had to play, He knows the offense. He knows the room. He knows the receivers. The coaches know him completely. And so he's just a what would we call it? A secondary phase of insurance, right? In case anybody gets hurt. USA Expat, if the Rams have first and goal, does McVay add the tush push to the play sheet? I don't think so. One, Coleman Shelton's your center, and he has limitations. And then two, I don't want to put I think Matthew Stafford's by far a superior quarterback to Jalen Hurts, but physically he's not Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts, what does that guy squat? Like the state of Texas, right? They put El Paso and Houston on those bars, and he just squats them. No tush push, right? Let's find out what they say about Jarquez Hunter providing some pop, Blake Corum providing some pop inside that half-foot line there. So, all right. So, looking around the NFC West and other places, let's see. San Francisco. And now, you don't want this to happen to anybody, okay? No one wants this to happen to anybody. No one wants to see someone struggle in life, right? We don't, right? The day job precludes me from wanting to see someone struggle in life. As a fan, you wonder, like, well, if it's going to happen to somebody, I'm glad it happened to the 49ers. San Francisco 49er cornerback Diamore de Lenore, the guy they kept, the guy they signed, the guy they believed in, and rightly so, okay, was arrested Thursday in L.A., charged with misdemeanor conduct for resisting arrest. He was arrested at 5:30. He's 25, and he was released on his own recognizance today, but he got arrested. So I don't know what it was. Resisted arrest. Something came up. We don't know what it was, but let's go back to the Rams. Darian Kendrick got pulled over when he shouldn't have, been driving at night. Nothing good happens after midnight. He's not a star player, but before Darian Kendrick, think about that, right? Think about that. DeMarcus Robinson had something, a DUI, I believe it was, and he's in Frisco now, and this stuff doesn't happen with Rams players, and so anything could happen to get you in a position like this, but as from my perspective, it's just as they say, it's a little more noise in that Frisco room, and I'm all for noise in the Frisco room. I just wish it was more Brandon Ayuk complaining about his contract or something, as opposed to a great player. You don't want to look at that, anyone getting hurt, but just something there with the 49ers that, again, makes me uneasy about them. Looking at the Cardinals, Cardinals brought in Josh Sweat from the Eagles. They paid good money, but last year with the 27th overall pick, and I just mentioned how the Cardinals they've been hitting. Monty Osifort and Jonathan Gannon have been hitting on all their picks, but Darius Robinson only played 184 snaps last year. He was taken 27th overall. He only had one sack, only appeared in 6 games. I know there was a lot of factors involved there, injuries and stuff, but it made me it really interested in me because they went out and signed Josh Sweat. Now, you can never have enough edge guys, right? And Sweat, of course, would know Jonathan Gannon. But yeah, so keep your eye on Darius Robinson. If he becomes the guy that they projected him to be, and then you got Sweat, him, Calais Campbell. Again, now you got a younger guy, not an older guy, not a veteran. You got a younger guy, hopefully, that could make noise for that Cardinal team. And unhopefully, if you're a Ram fan, again, the Cardinals are a team, they can beat the Rams. Are they a better team? No, but they can beat the Rams. And then finally in Seattle, they re-signed former third-round pick Shaq Griffin. Remember Shaq Griffin? In those early McVay years, you would see him out there playing against the Rams. He was a third-round pick in 2017, and he bounced around the league after leaving Seattle following the 2020 season. And had a nice year with Minnesota last year. He's been on the market, just floating around out there. He's one of those guys you always think he's done, right? You just, Shaq Griffin popped up again. But he's come back to Seattle. Is he going to be great? No. But it's a really nice depth piece for Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, and Josh Jobe, who's not great, but there's depth there in that room. Now, Witherspoon is a stud. Okay, Witherspoon is a stud, but the rest of that room, it's kind of like the Rams room if you remove Witherspoon. It's the corner room should be a depth room, and I think that's where it's going to be for the Rams this year. Everyone's, again, the KBM can't get out of their way talking about how bad the Rams cornerback room is. I think it's a deep room, and there's a lot of solid players there that maybe you could ask for 500 to 600 snaps from many of them, and you're going to have more guys available when somebody goes down, or more guys available that are fresh at the end of the season. I think Shaq Griffin being signed he's about 30 years old. I think it's a good signing. It's a good depth piece signing for the Seahawks. And if he got nothing left in the tank, they're going to put him in the street. So there we go. All right. I'm Joe Chirozzi, a sports writer for 20 years, 21. I still contribute to Mid-Valley Sports. I was one of the guys that started that place, but I left, and Tim and Dwayne, they run the show over there now. They're in the room. They cover the Chargers, and I get to talk about the Rams thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law. So please, if you do have an auto question and you live in LA, you live in California, injured in an auto accident, give Kistler Law a call, KistlerLawFirm.com. Check them out. I know firsthand who they are. And so we want to say thank you to them for allowing me to do this, and for you guys buying my books. I went from sports writing to book writing, and I've got several books. My first book was Tangent Dreams, and we're working on an audio version right now that should be coming out hopefully before the end of summer. And so we got that one, a high school football novel, and then we got Temple City Company of the Ages, another high school football novel. My most recent one was Game Day in the RamCave. It came out last September, fictional NFC title game between the Rams and Packers. Got good reviews on that. My day job, which this supports me in my day job, is I pastor a small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene. And I am right here on YouTube with Burbank Faith Virtual and BurbankFaithVirtual.com, and of course Burbank Faith Virtual all across social media. It's a very small church, but we do all the things we can to keep going. And another one of my books, this is from the day job. It's called Sin Virus. Think Christianity Meets the Walking Dead. I got a lot of good reviews on this one too, so be sure to check that one out. And then of course about school bullying, it's a novel called The Dark Norm. Check this. I actually wrote the outline for this when I was in high school all those moons ago, and I finally put it in book form a few years ago. So every time you buy a book, it helps me stay on the air. We don't have a paywall, and we do not have a Patreon account, so we do appreciate that. And by following us on Spotify or iHeart, we do appreciate all your support. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. USA Expat, throw the book at him out loud. Okay, throwing one of my books. I'm always getting the joke about, oh, Joe, I took your column and I used it to line my bird cage. Oh, Joe, I used your book to prop up my bed. I never get any love from my friends for my writing. We could throw the book at Lenore. There we go. Manuel Correa, what's up, amigo? Okay, Manny, everyone's talking. Manuel Correa, going to get your new books, Pastor. We loved all the other ones. Thank you very much. Did you read Sin Virus? Be sure to check that one out. There we go. Okay, so let's move on real quick here to around the NFL and other places. Before I dive into the NFL, I'm going to talk about difference makers in the NFL. I'm looking at my content here. I don't know if I got a ton of stuff, but I also, when the time comes at the end of the show, I'm going to ask you to talk about this question because it came up. There was a thread that I was on with Steeler fan Rob, of all people, and the great Tim Burns, who lives here on this board. And they were talking about players who should be allowed in the league. Now that Henry Ruggs is being released, should an NFL team give him a shot? And then there was, talk about Michael Vick and the things he did with the dogs and everything. And I didn't bring it up on their thread, but I also thought about, you go back to Leonard Little for the Rams, who was also a third-round pick out of Tennessee, like a current edge rusher we have. And Leonard Little, of course, he had a DUI and a manslaughter or someone killed in his driving thing back in '98. So think about that. Other stuff here that just before we dive in, yeah, I'm going to leave that NBA stuff alone. Who cares? Okay, there we go. Okay, let's look at the NFL and looking at differences or difference makers for these teams. Let's start in the AFC East. I'm looking at the Patriots, and I can't help but think their defense will be fine. But the keys are going to be rookie Will Campbell at left tackle that some people had some doubts about. I didn't know enough to have any doubts about him. And can they get a competent year out of Morgan Moses, who joins his third team in 3 seasons? If you remember in 2023, he was in Baltimore. If you remember last year, he was one consistent guy with the Jets, got out of New York, smart move, and now he's in New England. He keeps matriculating up the Northeast. And if he's competent this year, he doesn't have to be great. If he's competent, and then if he's Colton McKivitz level, and then you've got Will Campbell at left tackle, that's going to be something special for Drake May. They're really going to need that because I think their interior line is pretty solid. Real quick here, let's look at the Jets. The guy that for me for the Jets is Justin Fields. Aaron Glenn gave him 2 years, and he's got Garrett Wilson he's reunited with. They got Breece Hall. He's more mobile than obviously Aaron Rodgers was, and this is his shot, right? This guy was a top-level quarterback drafted. This was his shot, and I think he's going to take advantage of it. I want to make a note there. Former Rams, Tyler Johnson, Josh Reynolds, UDFA Neil Johnson, tight end, and Zach Evans are all currently on the Jets roster. The Bills, for me, I don't like their offensive line at all. I don't like their tackles. I'm not comfortable completely with them at receiver. I know Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, you should be, but I'm just not. Keep an eye on Tua. I think it could be a real tough year for Tua because he needs the parts around him working. Only former Ram on that roster is Jalen Ramsey. So there you go. Bills, they signed Josh Palmer from the Chargers, who I kind of liked. But the one that really interests me is Elijah Moore. Remember, he was a top pick of the Jets a few years ago, spent some time now in Cleveland, and now he's on the best team he's ever been on, and he's with the best quarterback he's ever been with, and he's out of Ole Miss, I think, and it's about like, okay, now are we going to see the Elijah Moore that we saw the highlights on going into that draft? And so I'm anxious to see how it plays out. I know there are other parts there in Buffalo, but Elijah Moore could be a huge difference maker, explosive difference maker for the Bills. Former Rams on the Bills roster, Michael Hoyt, Taylor Rapp, and even Trey White. Michael Hoyt joins the list of Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, in being former Rams edge players that have gone on to Buffalo. So I thought I'd throw that one out there. And we know Trey White was only in the Rams for a season, for like a blink of an eye. There we go. Looking at the Ravens, the Ravens are interesting. There's people around there. We know Lamar Jackson and all that, but they got a lot of production out of their offensive line last year. And what they're going to need is a repeat performance and improvement from left tackle Roger Rosengarten and Daniel Faalele. And Faalele, is that how it's pronounced? And because if there's struggles here, that whole thing's going to fall like a house of cards. I know Lamar Jackson is mobile, but we know there's limitations in this game that no one wants to talk about. So that left side of their offensive line is really critical there in Baltimore. 2 former Rams there, Joe Noteboom and Jake Hummel. Steelers, just looking at this, and I'm kind of curious, like, where's Roman Wilson? I thought Roman Wilson would be at the chart. Maybe Steeler fan Rob can tell us about that. But Aaron Rodgers is going to need more than Robert Woods to complement DK Metcalf, right? Robert Woods isn't going to command much attention, and Metcalf will. And one thing about Rodgers is Rodgers throws high percentage passes. He doesn't throw low percentage passes. And so Metcalf's going to have to be open or close to being thrown open before Rodgers, at least in recent history, that's who Rodgers has been. But they're going to need another receiver. And I thought Roman Wilson would be ready to take a step. Maybe I'm missing something there. And then the other key are their 2 tackles. Their interior line is great, Broderick Jones steps up, moving from right tackle to left tackle, and then getting Troy Fontenot back, who only played 55 snaps last year, have him play right tackle as this basically turns into his rookie year. Former Rams on this roster, of course, are Robert Woods, Ben Skoranek, and multiple Nelson Spruce Award winner Lance McCutcheon. Yeah, he's still bouncing around the NFL. For the Bengals, it's easy to say right now it's their defense, Trey Hendrickson, Shamar Stewart. That could be the difference between them being 7-10 and 10-7. But it all boils down really to Joe Burrow. It does. It really boils down to Joe Burrow. Can Joe Burrow have another healthy season? It kind of goes back to last year. We were at this time last year, and we nailed it when we said, do you really expect Christian McCaffrey to have 3 healthy seasons in a row? He had 2, and last year that third one arrived, and he only played 4 games. Joe Burrow, what has he been in the league now? 5 years? I think he's only finished, 1 season, 2 seasons at most? Above water in terms of health. And he played great last year. I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback, but will he stay healthy? Will he stay healthy? Browns, I don't even care, right? I don't even care. So there we go there. Let's see. Steve Ramirez, did you see the NHL is considering an 84-game schedule? Where are they at right now? Is it 80, Steve? Is it 80? Gosh, I enjoy hockey. I like playoff hockey. But, man, it wears me out. It wears me out. So Steeler fan Rob is in the house. Okay, good. You got Calvin Austin. Okay. But I would have thought, I'm looking at depth charts from PFF to our lads, multiple sites, and they don't have Roman Wilson starting. And I just thought, is there something I'm missing? Did something happen to Roman Wilson? I asked that honestly. And I love Robert Woods. You're not going to get anyone else to say bad about Robert Woods, but Robert Woods is wearing down. Robert Woods is wearing down. He's going to need more than Robert Woods. Bill, why are they always protecting Bennett from competition? I think they just like him. And I don't know why. That's a McSnead thing, right? If the Rams had only had 2 winning seasons in the last 8 years, we'd have a lot to talk about. But since we've had, 6 winning seasons, 6 playoff appearances, and 2 Super Bowl appearances and a title, I guess that's the one we give them. We give them Stetson Bennett. Okay, Steve Ramirez, hockey, 82 games. No, I did not hear that. Man, I would think contract a little bit. Contract. All right, AFC South. Like Christian Kirk with the Texans, I like Nico Collins. I like Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb sharing snaps. I like C.J. Stroud, but I can't believe D'Amico Ryans and that Texans team was going to try to sell me that offensive line. Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson at left guard. Titus Howard's been around since 2019. He's playing right guard. It's like, but everything else, it's all a mystery. I just don't understand what the Texans are doing. I would have thought they'd have gone heavy with offensive line after trading Laramie Tunsil to the Skins, but can't figure it out. Former Ram on this team, Zach Thomas. There we go. Jaguars. The one that interests me here, not just because of Trevor Lawrence, but it's important for Trevor Lawrence to play well, is Walker Little. I remember Walker Little coming out of Stanford. People had a lot of high expectations from him. He's slowly gotten better each year. And he took a big step at left tackle last year. Can he build on it? And so, again, that's going to be really critical because Lawrence is getting his butt kicked. Former Rams on this roster, Hunter Long, Johnny Munt, and the Wolf, John Wolford. Colts, they got a better than average offensive line. They got a good offensive line. And they took Javarius Ward to see if he has anything left. But it all is going to boil down to Daniel Jones. Can Daniel Jones play? Or can Anthony Richardson mature enough to take the job from Daniel Jones? Former Rams on this team, Samson Ebukam, David Long Jr., 3rd round, Michigan, 2019. That was a miss. And Neville Gallimore. Titans, not going to be a great team. They got Calvin Ridley, which is great. And that's the guy they got to watch. That should be Cam Ward's best friend. because you can't count on Van Jefferson, and even Tyler Lockett's okay, but he's aging out. Former Rams on the Tennessee Titans, Johnny Hekker, Sebastian Joseph Day, Van Jefferson, and Brandon Allen. Not Kyle Allen, Brandon Allen, who was a backup with the Rams in 2018. All right, AFC West, the Chiefs. It's really left tackle. You're hearing all kinds of good things about Josh Simmons, who they drafted. And then they signed Jalen Moore. They gave him 15 rocks a year to get him away from the 49ers. And really, that's it right there. That's the most important part, because if you can protect Patrick Mahomes, that defense is active and good enough, you're going to get those 1 point, 1 possession wins like you got last year. But if you can't protect Patrick Mahomes, it's church. It's all over. Chargers. Well, what's the big thing here? Well, this is all about a great offensive line opening holes for Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris. I know we're thinking Justin Herbert. I know we're thinking that passing game's got to pick up. Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, that's going to be fun to watch. Broncos, Cortland Sutton, but they're going to need someone else, right? They need another receiver big time there in Denver. The Raiders, solid, not great offensive line. It really boils down to how many touches do you give Ashton Jeanty, right? How will Ashton Jeanty hold up? Because I think Ashton Jeanty is going to be good behind a good offensive line, provide just enough space there for Geno Smith to hit Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers and those guys. They're just in the AFC West. They're not going anywhere. But how bad does Ashton Jeanty get beat up while having a great rookie year? Again, something to think about. Let's see. Steve Ramirez, 82 games. Okay, no more questions came in. Feel free. That's cool to throw one at me. NFC East, Taxkins. I believe Deebo Samuel has one good year left in him, a big year. And I think the Taxkins get it. I think it's going to be great. They get things settled with Terry McLaurin, and then you got Deebo Samuel. You want to see a little more at running back. Was it Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler? Eckler looks like he's putting on some mileage. And then, of course, Jaden Daniels. But Jaden Daniels, Deebo Samuel, I don't know, man. It looks pretty good to me. I think they could be trouble. They could be trouble for the Philadelphia Eagles. Former Rams on this team. Matt Gay signed with the Taxkins, as did Bobby Wagner, re-signed. Their big move this offseason was Laramie Tunsil, 31 at left tackle. Great move. He's kind of leveled off. He's good. Not average. He's good. You want to know, is there going to be a drop-off there? If he can play the way they want him to play, that's going to be – they got Wiley there at right tackle. They got to match up against that Eagles pass rush. So it'll be interesting. The Eagles, defense is great. I have no problem. But it's all about Saquon Barkley to me, because I think Saquon Barkley determines Jalen Hurts. Because if anything happens to Saquon Barkley, I do not trust Jalen Hurts. I think great offensive line, Saquon Barkley, some really productive receivers makes Jalen Hurts a Super Bowl quarterback. A non-present or healthy Saquon Barkley, Gainwell's gone. I think he signed with the Steelers. Lane Johnson being 35, the new right guard who's replacing Mekhi Becton, who went to the Chargers. Some of those guys, A.J. Brown having attitude, those things don't spell Super Bowl. I think you've seen the best the Eagles offense is going to be. Do I think they're going to be dangerous? Yes. Do I think they could even beat the Rams? Absolutely. Do I think they can get back to the Super Bowl? Yeah, if everyone stays healthy, but I don't think they're dangerous. I don't think offensively they're dangerous. Could Barkley repeat what he did last year? We'll find out. And, there's some age and new faces on that offensive line for the Eagles, so we'll see. Giants, we know about their pass rush that's put together, but at some point it's going to be about Jackson Dart and the offensive line that looks like it might be ready to take a step. Cowboys, they're a joke. Cowboys are an absolute joke. For respectability, just to get to respectability, what does Javonte Williams have left, right? Is there anything left in Javonte Williams, right? Can George Pickens refrain from being George Pickens and have a great season playing alongside CeeDee Lamb? Can he? It'll be really interesting to see because sooner or later, who you are comes out. And then there's Micah Parsons. And I saw the link this morning when I got up. It says Parsons is getting set up to sign a historic contract in coming weeks. 2021 as a rookie, he had 14 sacks. 2022, he had 15. 2023, he had 16. 2024, he had 14. Wow, he's got really good numbers. But in 4 playoff games, 251 snaps, he's only got 1 sack. In 2 huge playoff games against the 49ers, 0 sacks. In the playoff game at home against Green Bay in 2023, where that young Packer team came in and just absolutely kicked Cowboy butt with Jordan Love, Micah Parsons had 0 sacks. And now he's going to get a historic contract. Spot Track lists his market value at 4 years, 145, which is 36.2 per year. I still think that's too high, but I would give him that because I sure wouldn't want to give him Myles Garrett money, right? For the Steelers' sake, that if somehow, Myles Garrett, if you're going to give somebody that top money of 40, okay, it's Myles Garrett, right? But can you imagine if Jerry Jones gives him more than 40 rocks? That's the position that puts the Steelers in with TJ Watt. Now, Steeler fan Rob has said he'd go as high as 45. So, wow. That's just, sorry, it's too much. It's too much. Just my thoughts there. Let's see. NFC North. Let's see what we got with the NFC North. Packers, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and Emmanuel Wilson. Jordan Love has to mature his game, not as an attitude or anything like that. He's just got to take his game to another level, right? Josh Jacobs needs to stay healthy. They need to increase Emmanuel Wilson's snaps, who got a nice year backing up Josh Jacobs last year, because I like Josh Jacobs. I really do. I think it's so funny how you see a player in Las Vegas and you're like, whatever. And then you see a player playing at Lambeau, right? A late Sunday afternoon game. It's already dark at Lambeau, and you're seeing a guy run. Love watching that. And I just want him to be healthy. But that's what I think the Packers need. Lions, I think there's a lot of little things there that need to come together. Getting their coordinators right, making sure those things along the offensive line are figured out. But the guy that I'm thinking about is DJ Reed, the former Jet, the cornerback they signed. You got Terry and Arnold on the other side. They got 2 really good safeties. That looks pretty good. You get Anzalone back, Jack Campbell. You get Aiden Hutchinson back. They've made moves on the interior. I still think they need a complementary edge. But what it really boils down to for me, though, is thinking about, the Bears are going to throw the ball. The Packers are going to throw the ball. The Vikings are going to throw the ball. DJ Reed needs to be what the Lions signed him to be. Speaking of the Bears, it really boils down to Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, and Joe Thuney. Is Dahlman going to stay elite as one of the best centers in the game that they signed from Atlanta? Can Jonah Jackson bounce back and play well? And Joe Thuney, he's going to be, I think, 31 or 32. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an absolute Hall of Famer. Is Joe Thuney still got game enough to play? Because if those guys play in the interior, it's going to be all on Caleb Williams to say, hey, man, there's no excuses. Right. And I think Ben Johnson will hold him to that. And then, of course, they got Colston Loveland. But, of course, we'll get to that later. It's Dahlman, Jackson, and Thuney. Former Rams on the Bears, Case Keenum and Daniel Hardy. There you go. Vikings, J.J. McCarthy, and Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle who blew out his knee against the Rams last year in that Thursday night game. Is he going to come back and play at that level? Because J.J. McCarthy is going to need him to play at that level. And, of course, the only former Ram on that Vikings team is Brett Rippon. Former Ram on the Packers is Matt Orzech, the APU guy who was the Rams' long snapper. Let's look at the NFC South real quick here. NFC South, the Buccaneers just extended Todd Bowles and Jason Light. I think that was a great move. But the one I'm interested in is I think we've talked about their offense. I've talked about their offense quite a bit this offseason. But they got to get Kalijah Kancey, who had a good rookie year, but he needs a better second year, and Hassan Reddick to play well. Because then you got Vita Vea, and you got a lot of talent on that defense. That's what Todd Bowles' thing is. if their defense comes up a level, especially Hassan Reddick plays the way he's capable of playing, Kancey advances his game. I'm very high on the Buccaneers, so keep an eye on them. Former Rams in Tampa, Greg Gaines and Riley Dixon. Gaines isn't even a starter. He's a rotation piece who got a second deal with Buccaneers because he's played well. Falcons, for the sake of Michael Penix, it's Bijan Robinson. They got a great offensive line. They got a really good offensive line. It's just how you're going to use Bijan Robinson. And if he's running, those receivers are great. Mooney, London, yeah. I don't like their defense too much, but the Falcons could make some noise, and it'll be interesting to see how Penix plays. And then the question is, when does Kyle Pitts go, right? When do they put him in the street? When do they trade him? Does it happen at the end of summer? Because aren't you just tired? Sounds like a 60s song. Jordan Fuller, Morgan Fox, Leonard Floyd, special teams superstar Kadarius Hodge, and practice squad tight end Nikola Kalanick. Panthers, they got all kinds of issues there with Carolina. It's about keeping Bryce Young healthy and keeping him on the track he was at the end of the year. They tried to start Austin Corbett at center last year. He got hurt 5 games in and missed the rest of the season. He's projected again to be their starting center. If you remember, Austin Corbett was projected to be the Rams' starting center, I think in 2021 in the summer, and that job quickly reverted to Brian Allen. But Corbett is still there, and he's a key because he'll be the center of that offensive line and in the playing center. And if that offensive line isn't right, Bryce Young's career could be in jeopardy. Former Rams on the Panther roster, Nick Scott, Bobby Brown, and Christian Roseboom. Saints, whatever, right? Their most important person is their GM. Just needs to have fire sale. Former Rams in New Orleans, Cam Akers. All right, NFC West. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Former Rams in Frisco, Demarcus Robinson, and I think THT is still there. I think he is. But the most important person in Frisco right now is Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh. Yeah, we could talk about a lot of different things there on offense, but if Robert Saleh could raise the level of an aging defense and young players who have not hit their stride, Robert Saleh is going to be highly critical there in Fog City. With the Seahawks, I know it's heresy. I know you people won't like it because all we've heard is great things. But outside of Jackson Smith and Ajigba, I don't like the Seahawk receivers. I know. I know what you're saying. They're going to hope they can wring out a decent year out of Cooper Kupp, and then they're going to run Marcus Valdez-Scantling. They're going to run him against the Rams? Really? Thank you. Let it be so. And on top of that, you got a questionable offensive line. You got Sam Darnold, who we know. If I'm McDonald, the head coach, I keep it tight, I keep it short, and I pound Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker for as long as they're healthy, which should be till about week 6 because those guys always go down. Former Rams on the Seahawk roster, Cooper Kupp, Ernest Jones, and the long-forgotten practice squad player who actually got snaps in 2021, Tyler Hall. Anyone remember Tyler Hall? There you go. Cardinals, Kyler Murray. That's what it boils down to, Kyler Murray. If Kyler Murray takes a step, becomes something special, the Cardinals are going to be special this year. If he's just Kyler Murray, they're going to be the Cardinals, right? Former Ram practice squad member from last year, Anthony Goodlow, is on the Cardinal roster. And for the Rams, the key one for the Rams, Davante Adams. And I know we've talked about all these different players. I usually don't spend a lot of time talking about Davante Adams. But Davante Adams, if he's still got game, which we think he does, matching him up with Matthew Stafford and having the complementary pieces, and he's not complimentary, Puka Nacua, right? Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, this tight end room, these running backs, this offensive line. Could we hope to see Davante Adams have a year like Cooper Kupp had in 2021, which is like one of the greatest seasons a wide receiver ever had? And maybe he plays at that level but doesn't get that many stats because you got Nacua on the other side. But let me ask you, do you think that's possible? Because if the Rams get anything close to that, yeah, they're the only team that's going to stop the Rams are the Rams. All right. Wow, we've gone 49 minutes. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Steve Ramirez, Josh Jacob helped me win my Super Bowl fantasy league. All right. I wasn't going to talk about it because I didn't feel like there was time.
It was a stone group, my man.
But I do like hitting on seasons that were transformative, so to speak, and everything. Since we're slowing down a little bit during the summer, I don't want to go an hour and 15, guys. That was what we went the last show. But a real big season in Ram history was 1982. That was the strike shortened season. The Rams finished 2-7. It was the end of Ray Malavasi's run. It was the year the Rams brought back Vince Ferragamo. He had a disaster playing for Nelson Skelbania there in Montreal, and he got a nice contract, made the cover of Sports Illustrated, got benched, I think even before midseason in Montreal and for the Alouettes, and then he came back to the Rams in 82, and the Rams that spring had made the deal for Burt Jones. And if you guys didn't see Burt Jones play in his prime, 74 through 77, man, you missed a great quarterback. Burt Jones was great. And you didn't know how much he had left. And obviously he didn't when the Rams made the deal. But you look at Burt Jones and you just think, oh, my goodness. If Burt Jones, which he was only in his 10th year, think about that. We got Stafford in his 13th. If Burt Jones came and was still playing at a level that he was in 76 and 77 before the shoulder and neck injuries set in, could you imagine Burt Jones having been the Rams quarterback in 1983 with Eric Dickerson and that defense and that offensive line and what that Rams offensive line would have looked like? Could you imagine a Burt Jones in maybe his 13th season in 1985, which is where Stafford was when he came to the Rams? Rams beat the Bears. If you had a quarterback that could throw the ball, which the Dolphins did, you could beat the Bears because they were susceptible in that secondary. And it's just, what could have been. So he gets hurt. Ferragamo comes in. And I'll say this about Ferragamo in 82. Ferragamo, that was the last year he really flung the ball and slung the ball. I thought the Ferragamo we saw in 83 was a very timid Ferragamo. Wendell Tyler had a great year. Ferragamo threw for like 509 yards against the Bears, and the Rams lost. That season was all disappointments, right? All disappointments. And but the Rams were 1-7. Frisco had a hangover after winning the Super Bowl in 81. And they went to Frisco. They went to Candlestick, and Ivory Sully, if I remember right, Ivory Sully, great, not a soap, Ivory Sully, a great special teams player for the Rams from 79 through about 84. He blocked a kick. He blocked, I think, a Ray Wershing kick that secured the win for the Rams in the last day of the 82 season. And then things just changed, They drafted Eric Dickerson. They traded Wendell Tyler, which I loved Wendell Tyler. I got a picture of Wendell Tyler and me in here. And, of course, they traded him to the 49ers because why not help your division rival? And, of course, in 2 years they won a Super Bowl, and Wendell Tyler ran for 1,100 yards in 83. Anyway, I digress. But they made the Dickerson deal. They brought in John Robinson. And there was something fishy about John Robinson's sudden departure after 82 from the Trojans. It's like he was going to a new phase of life, and he was talking about all these things. He was excited about a new phase at the university, and then bingo, next thing you know, he's the Rams head coach. Was he great? No, he wasn't a great head coach, but he was better than Jeff Fisher. And what you saw was playoffs. Rams had missed the playoffs in 81 and 82, and they were a joke team. They won in 83. They made the playoffs in 84. They made the NFC Championship game in 85. They made the playoffs in 86. 87, another strike year, was a disaster. And then they went to the playoffs in 88. And then, of course, NFC Championship game in 89. After that, it was a disaster for John Robinson because the Rams were in the death spiral to get to St. Louis. But John Robinson did a great job. He also beat Dallas twice in the playoffs, once in 83 in Dallas, and then he beat them at home when Dickerson went off on a 21-0 victory in 1985. Little too conservative, I always like to say, Could you imagine if the Rams had somebody with a little more offensive minded and they kept Eric Dickerson? And then as they line up in that power I, all of a sudden they just flex Dickerson out into a slot. Can you imagine the heart attacks around the NFL the first time a D coordinator saw that? But yeah, the 82 season was awful, but it was like the watermark before things turned around again, at least through the 80s. And so I remember it well. All right, let's see what we got here as we wind this sucker down. Hit the like button. Thank you, JD. Thank you. Steve Ramirez. Rams knocked the 49ers out of the playoffs. That's how bad the Rams were in 82, is that everybody and their brother made the playoffs, right? Didn't they have teams that were 4-5 and stuff making the playoffs? Yeah, that was a great win for the Rams. Steve Ramirez. Those 1977 Colts could have won the Super Bowl if not for the ghost to the post. You know, it would have been kind of cool. It would have been kind of cool to see if they could have played Denver in that AFC Championship game, right? That would have been interesting. I really liked that team. I liked Roger Carr. He's completely forgotten. I think Robinson ranks number 2 wins for the Rams. I think you're right about that, Steve. I saw that. I saw someplace that was. But it was a nice recovery. It was just one of those years that was so sad. One of those seasons, that decade was. I don't think my heart was broken as much as it was in the 70s, because I understood in the 80s there were years you just didn't have a shot. And you got to take everything you can get. The problem with the 70s then and looking back now was we thought we had a shot with Pat Hayden. We thought we had a shot, right? It's like, what are we thinking here? We thought, oh, you could find something better than James Harris, when maybe you should have played out the string with James Harris to find out a guy who could go downfield, a guy that can run the ball, a guy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I digress. Anyway. All right, guys. Thanks for clicking on. Unless you guys have any questions here. Let me see. What time is it real quick here? 5:56. I'll go 2 more minutes. I want to get out before the 60-minute mark. I kept hearing this. I heard maybe it's because it was the draft and everything, but I'll say it again. No, the Lakers title in 2020 was just a summer league title. No way. LeBron James and Anthony Davis, after having nearly 4 months off, they were going to be healthy enough to win a title in a normal season. They won that season because they got 4 months off, right? The next year, LeBron James played 56 games and 55 the year after that. He played 45 games in 2020 total. And the season before that, he played 67, and before that, he played 55, right? I thought it was funny. I heard Colin Cowherd trying to defend it, saying, the next season, the Lakers had the best record in the NBA before LeBron got hurt. Yeah, LeBron got hurt, right? And they only played 45 games in 2020. Help me, right? Help me. I don't think in the normal grind of a season that Laker team would have won a title. Sorry, I don't believe that for a minute. Okay, this is the one I didn't get into. I probably should have. You guys are here. My bad. We're going to go over an hour today. When should a player who has done something truly heinous, not Lenore with the 49ers, okay, but truly heinous? I'm talking on one level, Michael Vick, on another level, Henry Ruggs. I don't even think we're talking Darrell Henley or Rayot Caruth. And then, of course, Leonard Little. And Steeler fan Rob and Tim Burns were having a discussion on the thread, and it got me thinking is that, Leonard Little in October of 98 killed a woman leaving a party, and he killed her. She was 47 years old, Susan Gutweiler in Missouri. And she was on her way to pick up her son from a concert. His blood alcohol content was 0.19, 0.11 points higher than the legal limit of 0.08. And he pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. But here's the thing. He got a 90-day sentence of work in a city workhouse, 4 years of probation, and was ordered to undergo 1,000 hours of community service. Henry Ruggs, that guy kissed the baby, man. What did he get? Minimum of 3, maximum of 10. And now they're talking about him being released, and should a team in the NFL give him a shot? I will say this: Leonard Little killed somebody. And you know, we have softer hearts now, but I thought there was more hatred towards Michael Vick for killing dogs than there was to Leonard Little for killing a human being. And I know we're a different culture now and how people feel about that, but it's true. Little got off pretty easy. For the most part, the last 20 years, he's been pretty clean. He had another DUI. He had a couple of other instances up through about 2004, and he's been off the radar. The one thing I haven't found anything to where he reconciled with the Gutweiler family, or at least, you know, made his major mea culpa. And when you think about Ruggs coming back, you know, he was drunk. Was he driving 10,000 miles an hour? He killed that woman. I think Little got off easy. I think they threw the book at Ruggs. But man, when it's something like that, shouldn't there be a requirement that you have to stand in front of the family and do some kind of, I don't know, make some kind of repentance, something? I don't know. I do not know. I just think I'm trying to project myself. If I was Susan Gutweiler's husband or father, I would feel like there was no justice. If I was the woman, the family of the woman killed by Henry Ruggs, I would feel like there's no justice. I'm a little different, a little more callous than some people. I like dogs. I'm a dog person, not cats. But my feeling would be, put him in jail, let him suffer. But once it's over, it's over. It was just a dog. A dog is not a human being. There you go. Take swipes at me if you want. You guys have any thoughts on that? I'll stick around and take a couple of thoughts. Willie Bowen chimes in. Rams will dominate the NFC West. Okay, I'm here, guys. If you want to take that shot, I'll wait one more minute. But yeah, where do you stand on a player committing something truly heinous? And should they be given a second chance? Should there be a requirement they meet with the family of the one, you know, they robbed their loved one of? Yeah, a lot of stuff there to unpack. I never thought Ruggs would see the light of day, at least in the NFL again. You know, and of course, you know, people come around, you know, say, oh, he was a good guy, you know, give full credit to some of Ruggs' teammates like Derek Carr, who says, hey, man, he needs somebody to love him right now. Not excusing what he did, but at least not disassociating like, hey, I don't know this guy, right? That's a true friend, and that's a true demonstration of faith. So if you guys have any thoughts on that, let me know. I'm gone in about 15 seconds unless I hear something. Willie Bowen, my favorite LA Rams head coaches are Sean McVay, John Robinson, Ray Malavasi, and George Allen. No Chuck Knox? No Chuck Knox there, Willie? Steve Ramirez, unfortunately, the ways of the world are baggage versus production. Yeah, it's true. Good call there, Steve. That'd be a great title for a book, Baggage versus Production. I won't steal it. That one's yours, Steve. There you go. That's a good title for a book. All right, guys. I'm going to run. Have a great weekend. We will get this spread around social media. Be sure to hit like. Be sure to subscribe. Tell your friends. And we'll get this uploaded tomorrow morning on our podcast sites, iHeart and everything. And then we'll go from there. Tim Powers chimes in last minute. Rams killed the 49ers in the 70s. They never got pretty. Oh, man. Brutal, Mr. Powers. There you go. That's brutal. Well, I will say this. The 49ers on that Monday night game that you had to listen to on the radio where they beat the Rams 16-0, and they committed felonious assault on James Harris. And who did the Rams fans blame, and who did front office blame? They blamed James Harris. So anyway, I'll throw that out there. Got to go. I went over an hour when we're not supposed to have material to go an hour. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Thanks for letting me do this. We'll see you Monday. Be sure to check us out. Rams got no playoffs. Prison in 70 and 72. That's funny. All right, guys. God bless.